Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw, and it is that time. A new Pokemon has been released and I'm going to give you my opinion as to whether or not you should buy it. In this video, should you buy Metagross? I'll first start with the fact that when I played Metagross on the public test server, I actually thought it was really bad. I kind of hated playing it, and it coming to the game, I feel very different from that. It's really interesting because I think a lot of what happens with anything is you get to experience it in maybe a not so great way, and then when it comes to the actual game and you get to play it, you actually get to be pleasantly surprised with how much better it is than what you had to experience on the public test server. So I have kind of this weird relationship with a lot of new releases inside of Pokemon Unite, because you'll play something on their testing servers and you'll have things you like, things you don't like, you'll understand the play style, and then once it makes its way to the game, it will either be significantly changed, not changed very much, changed in some very bizarre ways. So your initial opinions and then what comes to the game are actually kind of different, which is fun. It changes your mind a little bit. I also didn't get to play Metagross on release day, and I saw a lot of negativity around Metagross, and I think it's possible that I'm just playing this Pokemon in a different way than some people. I noticed a lot of people like a different sort of play style and move set with this Pokemon, and because of that, maybe they're not having so much fun. But I am enjoying this so much more than I thought I would. I think it's better than people actually think this Pokemon is. While at the same time, there are some big negatives to Metagross that we definitely need to get into. First, let's start with this. Metagross is a melee all-rounder, and it is a pseudo-legendary Pokemon, so it has a very, very high leveling curve inside the game. You evolve at 5 and 9, and I think one of the really interesting things about Metagross, and I was talking about this earlier, and one of my theories was even more confirmed. That's not how I should word this, but one of my theories was bolstered by the fact that Evokron from the Unite Math Core, TTV's analyst, really smart guy, actually pointed out something really interesting. It feels like Metagross was designed early on inside of Pokemon Unite's development, and it was just not released for a long time, because as this game is going on, you have to imagine that they need a batch of Pokemon when the game is released, and then you have a release coming every 5-ish weeks or something like that, 6 weeks, sometimes a little longer. So you have a lot of Pokemon that are sort of in this pipeline. You have a lot of sort of kits that are vague, and you're like, this is probably a fire type. We don't know what kind of Pokemon this is going to be. And then you have other things where you go, we know we want blank in the game. We know we want Gyarados at some point. We know we want 5, they really wanted a 5 EV team. We know we want Leafeon in the game, Umbreon. So they have these Pokemon that they are working on for quite some time. And then depending on Pokemon Day and the schedule and what seems exciting and the marketing team, Pokemon get released at different times. Metagross, to me, feels like a Pokemon that was being designed way early in the game's development. And I'll give you a few reasons why. First off, just the high leveling curve in general feels like this is an older design philosophy inside of Pokemon Unite. Second, because it's like kind of closer to Tyranitar, Second, it feels like the way the moves are set up, it actually feels more difficult to pull certain things off compared to some of the things that you see inside the game right now. For instance, inside the game, you have things like Mewtwo's Psystrike, Mewtwo's Unite move, Liquidation from Inteleon. You have these sure hit moves that do absurd amounts of damage with crowd control effects, all this stuff. And then you look at Metagross, and Metagross has Zen Headbutt. Zen Headbutt, it's kind of a cool move. It's not my preferred playstyle for Metagross, but it's a skill shot, meaning you have to aim it and then you have to hit something, and from that, Metagross will sort of heat sink onto the target, knock it up into the air, and you are next to that target. It is so much more difficult than many new releases, and because of that, I feel like Metagross was designed at another time inside the game's development, and this Pokemon's kind of been sitting around for a while trying to figure out when it would kind of hit Pokemon Unite. And I also was sort of, I also sort of learned this, and I thought it was really interesting. So I made a video a little while back about the leveling of Metagross and how Metagross will tick into its evolution where many other Pokemon will not. It could be a bug, but it is not fixed inside the game, and it was something that was noticed inside the PTS. However, it seems like it won't tick into its level 6 and 10, and or at least the XP bar fills weird towards its level 6 and 10. This is what Evocron was mentioning to me, and that would lead me to believe that this was designed a while back around the time when Pokemon like Mamoswine and Garchomp and things like that needed to hit level 10 before they evolved, so a while back. So that's just a long tangent, but I think it's a really interesting thought that Metagross is actually an older design that is kind of coming to the game right now, and I think part of that is why a few things about it feel particularly underwhelming. Let's get a few of the underwhelming things out of the way first, before I talk about some of the things that I think are actually really cool with Metagross. First off, let's talk about its Unite move. Its Unite move is bad. It's one of the worst Unite moves in Pokemon Unite, maybe the worst Unite move in the game. It's easily cancelable. Like, when I was streaming, honestly, I'm laughing thinking about this move. When I was streaming Metagross, its Unite move got canceled because it ran into a wall. You don't control its Unite. You press the button and then it kind of seeks to an opponent. It stopped because it bumped into a wall. That was the end of my Unite move at Rayquaza, was that it's just such a mess. So its Unite move needs probably a slight buff. I don't think it needs a crazy huge buff. I think other parts of its kit actually would do better with the buffs. It would need a slight buff for sure, and some big quality of life changes, because its Unite move is just a disaster. I also think Zen Headbutt, while cool, is just such a huge commitment for what it gives you. Zen Headbutt's upgrade gives you a 20% damage reduction after you hit with Zen Headbutt for like 2 seconds. I actually love this. If its base form did that and then its upgrade was like 40% or something, boom, this move right away I think would be the way to go. Without that, I think Magnet Rise actually is the clear winner for the moves, just because when you have a move like Zen Headbutt, it's cool, and when it connects and you get into the back line and the enemy's great, but you're not a Lapras level tankiness, so you kind of put yourself in a bad position some of the time with something like this. And Magnet Rise not only lets you commit or not commit, reposition, give yourself move speed, but it also does more damage and has a very, very similar knock up to it. So I just think Zen Headbutt is unfortunately kind of a head scratcher, a Zen Headbutt scratcher. I went with butt scratcher there. And then we also have kind of the early-ish game for this Pokemon. It's not terrible, and its level 5 is actually very good because you get either Meteor Mash or Gyro Ball, both of which I actually think are pretty solid moves. Meteor Mash does a shocking amount of damage sometimes, but your level 1 through 4 is like, meh, it's kind of a bit of a chore. Outside of that, I think Metagross has a lot of positives that I actually didn't expect. Let's talk about Gyro Ball for a second. It getting a nice cooldown reduction from its time on the public test server is probably warranted. You can even do a little bit of a cooldown reduction, I think, on Meteor Mash still. This Pokemon will get buffs, by the way. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Gyro Ball actually is pretty decent, but you just have to play Metagross in a way that I think a lot of people weren't expecting. So with a Pokemon like Tyranitar, you're jumping into a fight, and sort of when you're committing. You're going in, you know, you've used your Sand Tomb, your Ancient Power, you've engaged near the enemies, you're pushing with that damage. Metagross actually feels a lot more like a sort of in and out skirmisher inside of some of these fights. You move in, you use your moves, you do some damage, you hit your autos after it, then you kind of back away almost a little bit so that you have time for your cooldowns to come back, and then you move back in. Gyro Ball is really nice for this because its cooldown is pretty low. It gives you a shield that could probably be a little bit bigger. This will probably get a buff, but I really like the play style of Gyro Ball. It's actually not as bad as I thought it would be at all. And then again, you have Meteor Mash that does a really solid amount of damage to your enemies, but you have to manage your cooldowns with this Pokemon. It still probably could use some cooldown reductions. And then, of course, you have Magnet Rise, Zen Headbutt, which I talked about a little bit before. I think Magnet Rise is definitely the play. I know a lot of people like Zen Headbutt. I would just encourage you, try Magnet Rise and try playing this Pokemon almost like a wave, like in and out against the shore, and try to see how much more you like this Pokemon when playing it like that. Let's talk about the buffs this Pokemon will probably receive. We have a really interesting thing going on inside of Pokemon Unite right now, and I'm going to make a larger video about this, but we have Pokemon releasing that are not amazing. They're okay-ish. Like, they're okay. They're not bad. And then each one of them is getting some decent buffs. They're actually not being crazy overbuffed. Metagross will, without question, be getting this treatment as well. So if you like this Pokemon, if it's exciting to you, and you want something that's not going to get nerfed immediately, it's not Metagross. Metagross right now probably sits around the B-ish, maybe B+ tier inside of Pokemon Unite. It's nothing crazy, but at the same time, it's pretty dang decent, and it will get some nice quality of life changes. I would wager Zen Headbutt will get something. I think Magnet Rise might even get buffed back to its original form on the PTS. I think both Gyro Ball and Meteor Mash might get some changes, probably a bigger shield on Gyro Ball and probably a slight cooldown reduction on Meteor Mash. And then one of the biggest things is the Unite move. I think we'll get a complete overhaul. Like, it's going to be the same kind of Unite move, but it is going to be so much better because that Unite move is so tragic. I'll have more videos on my channel about builds and things like that. Right now, I actually really like playing this Pokemon with things like Weakness Policy, Razor Claw, Resonant Guard. I really like combinations like that on this Pokemon right now. Emblems, you can go with a classic brown-white for a Pokemon like this, absolutely. Its stats are actually pretty good, even though it does feel a little too squishy at times, but its stats are actually pretty solid. I think what we're just seeing is this Pokemon probably needs a little more uptime on its moves so that its shields and things like that are present more often inside the game. And now I'm going to talk to you about whether or not I think you should buy Metagross. I think if you've been excited about this Pokemon, Metagross is like buying a stock when its value is kind of low. It's actually it's a great buy. Like, if this is a stock right now, put some money into Metagross because Metagross is going to get better. Just like Meowscarada, Blaziken, Mimikyu, Mewtwo. Those ones got worse, but you get what I'm saying. We're in a trend right now of Pokemon being released that are fine and then getting a little bit of a tune-up, and Metagross is absolutely one of those. So if you've been excited about this, I am actually... I'm surprised to say this, but I am with you now. I was not excited about Metagross, and I actually think it's a pretty decent Pokemon to pick up. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I love you so much. I will see you all next time. It's good to be back. Back-ish. Smack my microphone there.